Alright, so I'm going to show how to open up and disassemble this Lenovo Y520-15IKBM. Okay, so first what you want to do is remove all the screws from the bottom. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Alright, for some reason all these, I worked on 2 of these today, and they were both missing, I think, these 2 screws and then these 2 screws. But yeah, anyways, once you remove all those screws, what you want to do, easiest way is if you open the screen slightly so that it's kind of up at an angle like this, and then get your fingernails or pry tool into this little gap here. Alright, and then when you do that, let me see if I can show this. So when you do that, then you can push with your thumbs on the palm rest to pop it out. Make sure you don't push on the trackpad area because you don't want to push this into the computer. So you only want to push on the palm rest to kind of flex it. Okay, so just like that. Then you can see it pops out. Once you do that, it sounds like there's a lot of broken plastic bits in here. Then you want to go all the way around. So go to the sides. Alright, if it unclips by itself, that's good. If not, run your pry tool or fingernail along the side while you're kind of pulling up on it. So as you can see, it kind of came up on its own. Alright, once you do that, lift it up and then kind of wiggle this around. You might have to push this in this way. So let's see here, it's kind of stuck here. So there we go. So I just actually ran my fingernail across the clips here. So this has more broken plastic, but yeah, I just ran it across and then it unclipped. So there we go. So now we got that open. I'm gonna have to clean this up. It's very dusty inside. The other one I worked on was also pretty dusty as well. So to clean this, you might have to actually remove the fans because the other one I worked on, it was really hard to get the dust out. But anyways, we got that cover off. Okay, so the main reason I'm opening this up, I have to change the screen. The hinge broke and then the screen was also damaged. Anyways, inside here we have a M.2 SSD. I believe this is, does it say here? 256 gig. It doesn't say. Oh yeah, it's okay. So it is a PCIe NVMe SSD. So this is a M.2 PCIe NVMe. Usually once you open it, to be safe, the first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery. So to do that, this wire's kind of long, so I just pull back on it like that. Usually you do have to kind of wiggle it a bit to get the battery connectors out. Anyways, once you do that, open the screen. Do it slowly and carefully because the hinge is missing some support from the back cover and the screws, and then just press and hold the power button. So I'm pressing the power button while it's slightly open like this, and do that for about 15 seconds just to make sure that any additional power in the board is drained out of it. That way you don't cause any damage. Okay, once you do that, man, all this dust is going everywhere. Okay, I'm gonna check here. Let's see. Okay, the other ends of the hinges are okay. Too much talking, my throat's all screwed up. Anyway, so let's see, maybe I'll take out the battery completely just so you can see. So let's remove the screws for the battery. So there's one on the side. Then you got another one down here. If your model is a little bit different, then just make sure that you check that any screws are missing. So these videos are meant to be more educational so you can kind of get an idea of what's inside your computer rather than a 100% follow along guide, because sometimes the models might be slightly different. So the other model I had that I worked on actually had a SATA 2.5 inch SATA hard drive here. So as you can see, it has these screw hole mounts. So if you open your model, because the model numbers were exactly the same, but it could be different. So this one doesn't even have a SATA port here. So keep that in mind. Your model might be different. I think one is a 2017 model and one's a 2018 model. So again, keep it in mind, these computers aren't all exactly the same. Okay, once you remove all the screws, you can tilt it up like this, and then you should be able to, is there something caught on it? It seems like it's stuck on this one side for some reason. I don't know if there's an adhesive or something. Okay, there we go. So there's a little clip here that was kind of holding it in place. I don't know how it was holding. Okay, let's see. So it looks like, okay, so this has a little sliding mechanism, so it's kind of weird that it just came out. Anyways, what you want is you slide it to the right, and then after that you can take it out. So this clip, it actually clips underneath this piece, okay? And the battery, in case you need the model, is here, L16M3P24, okay? Hopefully that's clear enough for you to see. So you got that, we'll set the battery aside. All right. Then you can see here's the trackpad cable. The trackpad buttons connect to the trackpad underneath this foil stuff. The keyboard is held in place with melted plastic, so if you do need to replace the keyboard, you will have to replace the whole palm rest assembly. Otherwise, you'll have to like cut all these plastic pieces out and then melt it back, which is a real pain, and it's better to just replace the whole thing. To remove the RAM, you have to go underneath this metal cover. So just grab on it and then kind of pull it off. Okay, sometimes if it's hard to get out, I use my fingernail or pry tool underneath and then I pry it up. Alright, so the RAM we have in here is 8 gigs PC4 2400T. So again, keep in mind that your model might be different because like I was saying earlier, I opened another one. It's the same thing, Y520-15IKB, but the insides were slightly different. The cover was the same, but the inside components were different. So anyways, you got the wireless card just like every other model. To remove the antennas, just go towards the tail, pull it up, and it pops up like that. To put it back, just make sure it's aligned properly within the circle of the connector, and then push it down. It's very important you make sure you line it up properly before plugging it in, because I've had people damage those before. To remove the wireless card, there's just one screw. It kind of flexes the board, so it's kind of scary to open this, but make sure you get enough pressure that your screwdriver doesn't skip out of the thing, and then you can unscrew it. It'll pop up just like the RAM. You pull it out and then you can replace it. Alright, so I'm going to leave that in there. Alright, let's see. So we got this separate board here with the one key recovery button. That's to go to like the BIOS or the boot menu and things like that. You also got the headphone jack, USB port, the Ethernet or LAN port as well, and the CMOS battery, all connected on this board that's replaceable. So you got that, there's the cable, and it connects underneath. I'm not going to take the whole motherboard out because I don't need to do that. I'm just changing the screen, but I figured I might as well, since I'm opening it, explain all these components inside. You got the DC jack or the charge port in here. You have to remove this metal bracket to take it out, and it goes all the way along here. This cable I'm not going to pull out, but to remove it, you basically grab it and you just wiggle it to pull it out. Basically like these connectors, but sideways. So just like this one, I'll show you. I use my fingernails towards the wings and I just wiggle it. Don't just pull straight up, because you can put too much force on the connector and the board. So as you can see, it just popped out just like that. Okay. I believe this connector is for the fans. Actually, let's see here. Yeah, this is for the fans, then this is for the speakers. So the speaker cables run actually all along here and then connect to this one cable. Comes out the same, just like the fan connector. Then you got the keyboard connector here, just like the trackpad cable and all these other ones. There's this little latch, you just lift it up and then you can pull the cable out. I'm gonna leave that in there. You got the keyboard backlight cable. This one has a little pull lever, so you pull these two wings outwards and that releases the cable. Alright, so when you put it back, make sure you just slide it back in and then push those two latches back down. Okay. Alright. let's see. So there is a connector here. So maybe there was a, I don't remember if I don't think the, let's see, what is this? Hard drive. Okay, so this does have a connector, so that if you wanted to add a regular hard drive, you need the caddy. It's like a metal bracket, and then you'll have a little SATA connector with this this board connector here. So if you did want to add that, you can. Then you got the LCD connector here. If you mess with this, make sure, like absolutely sure, 100% that you disconnected the battery and held the power button down for at least 15 seconds. Because if you take this connector out without doing that, there's a good chance that you will fry your motherboard. Okay. Then you got the GPU under here, it's soldered in place, and the CPU in here, that's also soldered in place. So the fan, I'm going to take out the screws just so I can kind of clean it up later. I'm not going to clean it up right now, but I will just take out the screws just so you can see. I think there's 4 screws, so there's 2 screws in the middle, and then there's 2 screws towards the outer edges. Okay. So just remove those screws. This one is kind of getting caught in place by those cables, so I'm not going to take them out. That should be enough just so you can kind of lift it up, so that way when I use the air blower I can kind of get the dust out. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to lift it completely out because there's cables, but yeah, I'm going to use a powerful air blower and then just get all of this out. You can also use like a vacuum or something to vacuum the edges here. So you can see there's kind of a lot of dust built up. So you can use the vacuum on the edge here and then use the vacuum here to pull the dust out, and then just keep going back and forth and to clean it up. But yeah, usually I prefer like blowing all the dust out instead of trying to use a suction, because then you have to kind of get the suction thing too close and you can damage stuff. Okay, so we got the speakers. I think I mentioned everything. The speakers aren't held in place with screws. They just have little rubber gaskets on it, so you can see you can just lift them up. But yeah, they are threaded all around with these wires, so if you needed to remove this speaker, you're going to have to take out like the whole heat sink, so it's going to be a pain. Actually, yeah, I think you probably have to. Otherwise, you have to find a way to kind of thread the whole thing underneath this whole assembly. But anyways, that's all there is inside, so we are going to go and do the screen now. So make sure your RAM is in place. Okay. And line this back up so it goes between. There's like little clips that hold the metal piece in place, just like that. Make sure you have it lined up. Alright, so we got all of that out. I'm going to leave those screws out so I can fix it later, or clean it up later. Right, we're going to put this cover on just so when I turn it over, it's not going to make the dust go everywhere, and also it won't get shorted out. I have this electrostatic, I think they call it ESD, foamy pad thingy that I get when I get replacement screens. So again, open the screen slowly and carefully because it doesn't have all the screws holding the hinges down. Alright, so when you take out the screen, let me see if I can show this. Okay, so when you take out the screen, what you do is you pull up on the inner side of the frame, and then you kind of pull the frame out, towards the center. So I usually use my thumb to do that. Let's see, I might have to start with the top of the screen first. So we'll start with the top of the screen first. So just like this. Okay, I think I already kind of popped this out. There is some adhesive kind of holding. Alright, so these ones, the clips are coming out. Alright. Just be careful with this. I think this one you might have to actually pull it the other way. Let's see, it's stuck here. The clips go up into it, so I think you do have to pull it outwards. Okay, but it still doesn't want to move. Okay, so sometimes I just like, oops, you can't even see. Sometimes I kind of just wiggle it up and down until it releases if it's stuck. So if pulling it inwards doesn't work, just kind of like wiggle it like this back and forth, and that should get it to unlock. There we go. So just like that. Same thing with this side. All right, sorry if my arm is in the way. Just like that. Okay, I'll flip it over. And we'll get to the bottom. There is some adhesive, so just know that you will have to kind of pry it. If you are going to do this, the screens that have adhesive like this, you want to make sure that if you are taking this bezel off, that the screen is already broken, because otherwise there's a good chance you will break the screen and have to replace it anyways. Okay, so this part was kind of stuck. There we go. So the hinges on this one were actually broken, so I actually had to epoxy them in place, as you can see. So I put it in a way so that the epoxy doesn't get stuck to the screen or the frame. So this stuff, I can remove it. Oops, I accidentally tore it. Okay, so get this tape off. It's no longer needed. Okay, there we go. So if you attempt this, be very careful. This stuff is it's JB Weld. Holds very strong, but you kind of have to know what you're doing. If you just put glue randomly in there, you're probably going to end up messing stuff up. So be very careful if you are going to attempt this. Alright, as you can see, I filled up all the little screw holes. I believe there were 3 screws on each side. Yeah, and then you also have to make sure you don't get the epoxy into the screen. Okay, so anyways, we are going to take out the 4 screws holding the screen in place. Okay, the replacement screen is a it's a compatible model. I don't think it's like same every time I look to buy the screens. Usually they'll just send a compatible. If you order the screen, make sure, because this is a matte screen, if you like matte, or if you don't care if it's glossy, make sure that whoever you're purchasing the screen from, that you let them know if you want it to be glossy or matte, because they'll usually just send whatever they have available. Alright, once you do that, you pull the screen forward. Let me show this actually. So once you do that, you just pull the screen forward. Alright, be careful, there are magnets on the side, so you don't want to get the screen caught, and then be careful, because yeah, there's a magnet here. So if it does get stuck there, just be careful pulling it back. Once you do that, there's a little latch that goes over the screen cable, so lift that up, and then towards the bottom of the latch, you want to use your fingernails to kind of pull it back or wiggle it just like this. Alright, so you got the screen out, so that's the broken one. I'll set that aside, or set it with all the other broken screens here. Got a whole stack of broken screens. Alright, now that we got that, we'll get the new screen. So as you can see, it's different. It has all this metal stuff on it. Okay, so once you get the screen, lay it down flat, and then line it up. Make sure that these 2 outer wings go underneath. I've seen some people, they kind of tried to force it in and bent the connector on the screen, and sometimes you can damage the computer that way as well. Alright, so make sure when you pull it, it goes all the way in. This little latch is nice because it lets you know that if you can latch it down, that the connector is in all the way. Alright, so we got that all in. Then you just put the screen back up. Make sure the screw holes all line up. Alright, oh, this little metal bracket. A lot of times these little metal brackets get slightly bent, so you have to kind of bend them back. Alright, and also you want to check, because usually when these parts get delivered, the boxes get thrown around, so just be careful with that. Okay, so hold the screen down. Make sure not to put too much pressure on the screen. You don't want to crack it again. Alright, then tighten up the screws. Just like this. And it's usually a good idea to test the screen before you put everything back together. So I'm just going to put the 4 screws for the screen back in, and then I'm going to boot it up into the BIOS just to make sure everything is working well. Okay, so we got those screws back in. Close the screen. Again, be very careful not to close it too quick. Alright. If you want the hinges to last, because a lot of these laptops, the hinges are made of screws, even if all the screws are in place and everything is fine, you kind of want to open and close it gently. Don't just like quickly like open it. Okay? Alright, so we're going to put the battery back in. Again, this battery has a sliding mechanism, so keep that in mind when you put this. Oops, it's upside down. So again, keep it in mind. So you want to slide it all the way to the right, then put it down, and then slide it back over. Alright, we'll reconnect this. Make sure the connector goes in straight. You don't want it slightly crooked, and then you can bend the pins inside, or you can connect the wrong pins and short something out. Alright, we'll put back the screws. And then I will clean this up off camera. So once I'm done making sure the screen's okay, I'll clean all the dust out. Or actually, I'll probably do it in the morning because it's probably like 2 a.m. right now. And the air blower I use is kind of noisy. I don't want the neighbors to be mad. Alright, so now we got all the screws in. Hopefully the battery has enough charge that I can power it on and check it. So I'll put this cover back on slightly. Alright, sometimes when you remove the battery, it also won't power on until you plug it in. So let's see. So I'm going to take the needle and then use the little button on the side here to turn on the 1-key recovery. Okay, the charge light is orange, so it's probably low on charge, but as you can see, the screen is working perfectly fine. I can go to the BIOS setup. Go, and the screen is perfectly good. So we're going to peel this off, put the bezel back in place, and usually when you peel this stuff off, you kind of want to peel it backwards parallel. Don't like pull it straight up, because sometimes it can put a lot of force on the screen. I don't think you'll break it, but just to be safe, that's the best way to peel off those things. Alright, so everything's good, and yeah, we'll put the bezel back on. Okay, clean up some of this dust. Alright, so you just put this back in place. I'll turn the computer back off, and then just snap it all back in place. Okay, just like this, going around, snap all the clips in. Alright, just like that. Towards the bottom, you kind of have to press on the back with your, you can't really see what I'm doing, but press on the back with your other hand and then push the other part forward, okay? Just like that. The new screen won't have the adhesive, so if it bugs you that there might be a slight gap in the frame here, you can add some double stick tape, but it's usually not a big deal. It doesn't cause any issues having it, unless it bothers you looking at it. But, okay, so as you can see, there's a tiny gap, but it's not really a big deal. Okay, if the customer wants, I will put some adhesive there, but usually I don't do that because it ends up breaking the screen when people like end up yanking on it or something. Okay, so there we go. That's all there is to it. Hopefully this video helped you. If it did, please like and subscribe, because that'll help me, and it'll also help others that have these kinds of computers and issues or want to upgrade. It'll help them find these videos as well. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're curious on learning how to build or repair computers, make sure to watch a bunch of my other videos, and usually after you watch like 5 or 10, you'll probably be pretty good set to know how to take apart almost every single laptop. Alright, so again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.